The desperate screams of a Zorgalian child named Zix echoed through the uncaring void of space, as his small bloodied fingers clawed at the unresponsive comms panel, praying that someone would hear his call for help, even as the frozen corpses of his family floated behind him. His ship had been savagely attacked by the ruthless Krodax raiders just hours before, and now he was utterly alone, stranded, and facing a slow, agonizing death. The galactic community heard his pitiful cries, but did nothing. The wise Elvanians, known for their advanced culture, muttered to each other about the dangers of the Krodax, and how it was best not to provoke them. The logical Quarians, normally so objective, coldly calculated that the life of one small alien child was not worth the risk of a larger conflict. But then, a gruff human voice crackled through the comms. "This is Captain Marcus Riker of the Earthship Dauntless. We hear you, kid. We're on our way. Just hang tight." The line cut off. The alien council hailed the Dauntless, warning them that this was suicide. The Krodax were too ruthless, too strong. To attempt a rescue was to court war. Marcus stared at the councillors for a long moment, then shook his head. "To hell with you. I don't abandon children to die alone in space, not now, not ever, Dauntless out." He glared at his small crew, Liara, Jax, and Rorik. They looked back at him, determined. They all knew this was probably a one-way trip. But they were human, and they would not leave a child to suffer. The Dauntless streaked toward the outer rim, and whatever horrors awaited them there would be no backup, no second chances, just 4 humans, their wits and their indomitable will to make a difference, no matter the cost. The Dauntless shook as a barrage of plasma fire slammed into its shields. Alarms blared through the corridors. Marcus gripped the arms of his captain's chair, knuckles white. "Damage report," he barked. Rorik's voice crackled over the comms, strained but steady. "Shields at 60% and falling, Captain. That last hit took out our forward cannons." Marcus gritted his teeth. They had barely entered the outer rim when the Krodax warship had appeared, as if lying in wait. It was easily twice the size of the Dauntless, bristling with enough firepower to reduce them to atoms. "Jax, evasive maneuvers. Keep us out of their sights." "Hi, Captain." The ship lurched as Jax sent them into a dizzying spiral, narrowly avoiding another salvo. Marcus turned to Liara, his tactical officer. "Find me a weakness, anything we can exploit." Liara's eyes darted across her screens, analyzing the enemy ship. "Their shields are focused forward, leaving their aft section vulnerable. If we can get behind them—" Marcus nodded. "Jax, you heard her. Get us on their 6. Rorik, divert all power to engines and aft shields." The Dauntless shuddered as Jax pushed the engines to their limits, pulling off a hairpin turn that brought them face to face with the Krodax ship's rear. For a moment, the enemy vessel filled their view screen, its massive engines glowing ominously. "Fire everything we've got," Marcus roared. The Dauntless unleashed a full barrage, missiles and energy beams slamming into the Krodax ship's unprotected aft. Explosions rippled across its hull. "Their engines are hit," Liara reported. "Weapons offline." Marcus allowed himself a brief grin. "Good work, everyone. Now let's get that kid." As they approached the battered alien ship, Marcus stood. "Liara, Rorik, with me. Jax, keep the engine running. We may need to make a quick exit." The 3 crew members raced to the airlock, weapons drawn. They boarded the alien vessel, picking their way through the debris and floating corpses. "Zix?" Marcus called out, "and we're here to help. Where are you?" A soft whimper drew their attention to a small hidden compartment. Marcus pried it open to find Zix, shaking and wide-eyed with fear. "It's okay," Marcus said softly. "We're getting you out of here." He reached out a hand. Zix hesitated for a moment, then grasped Marcus's hand tightly. Just then, Jax's urgent voice came over the comms. "Captain, the Krodax ship is powering up again. We need to leave now." Marcus scooped Zix into his arms and ran, Liara and Rorik close behind. They barely made it back to the Dauntless before the Krodax opened fire, their shots grazing the human ship's hull as Jax punched the engines, sending them hurtling away from the enemy at breakneck speed. The Dauntless shuddered as it limped away from the Krodax warship, its hull scorched and battered. Inside, emergency lights flickered and sparks burst from damaged consoles. Marcus pushed himself up from the captain's chair, wincing as he felt the bruises forming from the rough escape. "Damage report," he called out, his voice hoarse from shouting orders during the battle. Rorik emerged from the smoky haze, his face streaked with sweat and grime. "It's bad, Captain. Engines are barely holding together, life support is on the fritz, and we're fresh out of ammo." Marcus nodded grimly. They had thrown everything they had at the Krodax, and it had nearly torn them apart. But they had done it. They had saved the kid. Speaking of which, Marcus made his way to the small, trembling figure huddled in the corner of the bridge. Zix looked up at him with wide, terrified eyes, his blue skin pale and his antennae drooping. Marcus knelt down beside him. "Hey there, Zix, you're safe now. We're going to get you home." Zix's lower lip trembled. You came for me. Even though the Krodax was so scary and strong, why?" Marcus smiled softly. "Because leaving a child to die alone is never an option. Not for us humans." Tears welled up in Zix's eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you so much." Marcus patted his shoulder, then stood, turning to face his crew. "All right, people, we need to let the council know what happened here. Liara, get me a line to those bureaucrats." Liara tapped at her console, then shook her head. "Comms are spotty, Captain. That last hit really did a number on us." Marcus sighed. "Just do your best." After a few moments, a flickering hologram of the council chambers appeared. The Elvanian and Quarian representatives looked at Marcus with a mix of surprise and annoyance. "Captain Riker," the Elvanian said coldly, "we warned you not to interfere with the Krodax. Your reckless actions could have dire consequences for the entire galaxy." Marcus felt his temper flare. "With all due respect, Counselor, I wasn't about to let a child die out there. We did what was right." The Quarians shook their head. "What you did was foolish. The Krodax will not take this insult lightly. They will seek retribution." "Then send us some backup," Marcus snapped. "We're dead in the water here, and the kid needs medical attention." The councillors exchanged a look. "We cannot risk further provoking the Krodax," the Elvanian said. "You are on your own, Captain." With that, the hologram winked out, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Marcus slammed his fist against the wall. "Cowards," he growled. "They'd rather let us die than stand up to those raiders." Jack spun around in his pilot's chair. "So what do we do now, Cap? We can't exactly limp back to Earth like this." Marcus took a deep breath, then squared his shoulders. "We find another way. We'll get Zix to safety, even if we have to do it alone. Jax, plot a course through the uncharted territories. It's risky, but it's our best bet to avoid Krodax space." Jax grinned. "Aye, aye, Captain. One dangerous uncharted route coming right up. Rorik, I need you to work your magic on those engines. Squeeze every last bit of power out of them." Rorik cracked his knuckles. "I'll keep us flying, even if I have to get out and push." As the crew set to work, Marcus turned back to Zix. "Looks like we're in for a bit of a rough ride, but don't worry, we'll get you home safe." Zix managed a small smile. "I believe you. You humans are brave, not like the other aliens." Marcus sat down next to him. "Tell me about your people, Zix. What are the Zorgalians like?" As the Dauntless limped through the stars, Marcus listened intently to Zix's stories. He learned of a gentle, intelligent race with incredible medical knowledge. Zix spoke of how his people had developed cures for diseases that plagued other worlds, how they freely shared their wisdom. "You know," Marcus said thoughtfully, "your people's skills could do a lot of good in the galaxy. Have you ever thought about reaching out to other races?" Zix's antennae perked up. "We've always been too afraid, but maybe it's time to be brave, like you humans." Marcus grinned. In the face of everything, this kid was already thinking about how to make the universe better. Maybe there was hope for the future after all. The Dauntless shuddered as it navigated through the treacherous, uncharted territories. Marcus gripped the armrests of his captain's chair, his knuckles turning white as Jax wove the ship through a dense asteroid field. Chunks of rock pelted the hull, each impact reverberating through the ship's frame. "Hold steady, Jax," Marcus called out, his voice tense but confident. "You're doing great." Jax's brow furrowed in concentration, his hands flying over the controls. "Aye, Captain, but these asteroids are the least of our worries." As if on cue, a brilliant flash of light illuminated the bridge, followed by a deafening boom. The ship lurched violently, throwing the crew against their restraints. "Aye, Storm," Liara shouted over the cacophony of alarms. "Shields are holding, but barely." Marcus leaned forward, his eyes scanning the view screen. "Rorik, can we reroute power to the shields?" Rorik's voice crackled over the comms, strained but determined. "I'm on it, Captain, but I'm running out of tricks down here." Another jolt rocked the ship as a hostile alien vessel emerged from the storm, its weapons blazing. Marcus recognized the design, a Zorgoth raider known for their ruthless attacks on vulnerable ships. "Evasive maneuvers, Jax," Marcus barked. "Liara, target their weapons systems." The crew worked seamlessly, their movements precise and coordinated. Jax sent the Dauntless into a dizzying spin, narrowly avoiding the raider's fire, while Liara launched a surgical strike that disabled the enemy's cannons. As the raider limped away, Marcus let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Good work, everyone, but stay alert. We're not out of this yet." Zix watched the humans with a mix of awe and concern. "Is it always like this for you?" he asked quietly. Marcus turned to him, his expression softening. "Not always, but we knew the risks when we chose to help you, and we'd do it again in a heartbeat." Zix's eyes widened. "But why? Why risk so much for a stranger?" "Because it's the right thing to do," Marcus said firmly. "Because every life matters, no matter how small or different." As they pressed on through the dangerous expanse, news of their actions began to spread. On distant worlds, beings of all kinds huddled around communication screens, watching the story unfold. "Did you hear about the humans?" A Lyraxian merchant whispered to his companion in a crowded bazaar. "They say they rescued a Zorgalian child from the Krodax." His friend scoffed. "Foolish, if you ask me. They've only brought trouble upon themselves." But others saw the humans' bravery as a beacon of hope. In a dingy bar on a backwater planet, a grizzled Varkian soldier raised his glass. "To the humans," he said gruffly, "for having the guts to stand up to those Krodax bastards." Meanwhile, in the shadowy halls of a Krodax stronghold, Commander Zagrak seethed with rage. "They dare to defy us," he growled, his clawed fists clenching. "They think they can insult the Krodax and live?" He turned to his subordinates, his eyes glinting with malice. "Hunt them down, bring me their heads, and make sure the galaxy sees what happens to those who cross us." Back on the Dauntless, Rorik burst onto the bridge, his face etched with worry. "Captain, we have a problem. I've detected a hidden signal piggybacking on our comms. The Krodax. They've been tracking us." Marcus's jaw clenched. "How long?" "Long enough," Rorik said grimly. "They're closing in fast." Liara checked her scanners, her eyes widening. "He's right. A Krodax warship headed straight for us. They'll be on top of us in minutes." Marcus stood, his resolve hardening. "Then we make our stand here. Jax, scan the area for any advantages we can use." Jax's fingers danced across his console. "There's a nebula nearby, Captain. Dense gases, highly volatile. If we could lure them in—" "We could use the nebula against them," Marcus finished, a plan forming in his mind. "Rorik, how much can you coax out of the engines? We need to stay ahead of them long enough to reach the nebula." Rorik cracked his knuckles. "I'll give you everything she's got, Captain, and then some." Zix stepped forward, his small form radiating determination. "I can help too. I know Krodax technology. I might be able to disrupt their systems, give us an edge." Marcus looked at him, proud and concerned in equal measure. "It'll be dangerous, Zix, are you sure?" Zix nodded, his eyes shining with courage. "You risked everything for me. It's my turn to be brave." As the Krodax ship loomed ever closer, the Dauntless sped towards the swirling nebula. The humans and their young alien friend united in their desperate gambit. They had come this far. They would not fail now. Not when so much depended on them. The Dauntless shook violently as it plunged into the nebula, the colorful gases swirling around the hull. On the bridge, the crew held on tight, their faces illuminated by the eerie glow. "Krodak's ship entering the nebula," Liara reported, her voice tense. "They're right behind us." Marcus leaned forward in his chair. "Steady as she goes, Jax. Rorik, divert all power to the shields. We're going to need every bit of protection we can get." The ship groaned as Rorik worked his magic in engineering, coaxing every last ounce of energy into the shimmering force fields that enveloped the Dauntless. Zix hunched over a console beside Liara, his small fingers flying over the controls. "I'm in their systems," he said, his voice tight with concentration, trying to disrupt their sensors. On the view screen, the Krodak ship loomed out of the swirling gases, its weapons glowing ominously. "They're locking on!" Jax shouted. "Brace for impact!" The Dauntless shuddered as the Krodaks opened fire, their energy beams slicing through the nebula. But Zix's efforts had not been in vain. The shots went wide, missing the human ship by mere meters. "Good work, Zix," Marcus called out. "Keep them off balance. Jax, bring us about, Liara. Target their engines. Let's see how they like a taste of their own medicine." The Dauntless swung around, facing the Krodaks head-on. Liara's fingers danced over her console, and a barrage of missiles streaked towards the enemy ship. But the Krodaks were not so easily defeated. They swerved and dodged, their superior technology allowing them to evade the worst of the human assault. "Their shields are holding," Liara said grimly. "We need a new plan." Marcus stared at the view screen, his mind racing. The nebula gases swirled around them, a kaleidoscope of colors and energy, and then it hit him. "The nebula," he said, his voice rising with excitement. "Rorik, can you rig a plasma charge, something we can detonate remotely?" Rorik's eyes widened, then a slow grin spread across his face. "Aye, Captain, I think I see where you're going with this." "Jax, I need you to fly straight at them, as close as you can get. Liara, keep firing, keep their attention on us." The crew nodded, their faces set with determination. They knew the plan was risky, but they trusted their captain. Zix looked up at Marcus, his eyes wide. "What can I do?" Marcus placed a hand on the young alien's shoulder. "Keep disrupting their systems, Zix. Every second counts." As Rorik worked frantically in engineering, jury-rigging a plasma charge, the Dauntless hurtled towards the Krodak's ship, weapons blazing. The Krodaks returned fire, their shots growing ever closer as Zix's interference began to falter. "Rorik, tell me you have that charge ready," Marcus called over the comms. "Ready and waiting, Captain," Rorik replied, his voice strained. "But you'll only have one shot at this." Marcus nodded. "Jax, on my mark, pull up hard. Liara, fire the charge directly into their path." The crew tensed, ready to execute the desperate maneuver. The Krodak's ship loomed ahead, filling the view screen. "Steady," Marcus said, his voice calm. "Steady." The Dauntless shook as the Krodaks landed a glancing blow, alarms blaring across the bridge. "Now!" Marcus roared. Jax yanked back on the controls, sending the Dauntless into a steep climb. At the same moment, Liara launched the plasma charge, the glowing orb arcing through the nebula. For a heartbeat, time seemed to stand still. Then the charge detonated directly in front of the Krodak's ship, igniting the volatile nebula gases. A massive explosion ripped through the void, engulfing the Krodaks in a maelstrom of fire and plasma. The Dauntless shook and bucked as the shockwave hit, throwing the crew against their restraints. But when the flames cleared, the Krodak's ship was nowhere to be seen, reduced to shattered debris by the cataclysmic blast. A cheer went up on the bridge, the humans embracing each other in relief and triumph. Zix stared at the view screen, his eyes wide with wonder. "You did it," he whispered. "You actually did it." Marcus grinned, the weight of the past hours finally lifting from his shoulders. "We did it, Zix. Together." As the Dauntless emerged from the nebula, battered but unbroken, Marcus knew that their fight was far from over. The Krodax would not forget this defeat, and the galaxy was still a dangerous place. But for now they had won. They had shown that courage, ingenuity, and unity could overcome even the greatest of odds. And as long as they had each other, Marcus knew, there was nothing they couldn't face. He looked around at his crew at Zix and felt a swell of pride. They were more than just a crew, more than just friends. They were family, and family always stuck together no matter what the universe threw at them. The Dauntless shook violently as it plunged deeper into the heart of the raging nebula. The view screen was a kaleidoscope of swirling colors, the gases painting an almost mesmerizing picture, if not for the deadly Krodax ship hot on their tail. "They're gaining on us!" Liara shouted over the blaring alarms. Her fingers danced across the weapons console, sending volleys of laser fire back at their pursuers. Marcus gripped the armrests of his chair, his knuckles white. "Jax, I need you to keep us one step ahead. Use the nebula to your advantage." "Aye, Captain," Jax called back. His brow furrowed in concentration as he wove the ship through the treacherous gases. The Krodax ship loomed ever closer, its weapons pounding against the Dauntless's weakening shields. On the bridge, sparks flew from overloaded consoles, and the acrid smell of burnt circuitry filled the air. "Shields at 20%, Rorik reported, his voice strained. "I'm rerouting every scrap of power I can, but it won't hold for long." Marcus turned to Zix, who was hunched over a console, his small hands a blur of motion. "Zix, tell me you have something." The young Zorgalian looked up, his eyes wide but determined. "I think I can disrupt their targeting systems, but I'll need to get closer." Marcus nodded grimly. "Do it, Jax. Bring us in range. Liara, give them everything we've got." The Dauntless surged forward, Jax steering them in a daring arc towards the Krodax ship. Liara unleashed a barrage of missiles, the projectiles streaking through the nebula like angry hornets. The Krodax ship shuddered under the assault, its shields flickering. Zix, seeing his chance, input a series of rapid commands. "Got it! Their targeting is scrambled!" "Good work, Zix," Marcus said, "and Rorik now." In engineering, Rorik grinned as he activated the traps he'd laid, a series of jury-rigged EMP mines floating in the nebula. As the Krodax ship blundered into them, the mines detonated, bathing the enemy vessel in cascades of disruptive energy. The Krodax ship listed, its systems haywire. Marcus saw his chance. "Jax, bring us in close. I'm going aboard." "Captain, that's suicide," Liara protested. Marcus met her gaze, his eyes hard. "It's the only way to end this. Keep them busy. I'll deal with Zagrax." He raced to the airlock, a pulse rifle in his hands and determination in his heart. As he boarded the Krodax ship, alarms blared, and emergency lights painted the corridors an ominous red. Krodax warriors, their reptilian faces contorted with rage, charged at him. Marcus met them head-on, his rifle spitting plasma. He fought his way through the ship, every step a battle, every corner a potential ambush. But he wouldn't be deterred. Not with so much at stake. He burst onto the bridge, and there stood Zagrax, the Krodax commander, his eyes glinting with malice. "You dare to challenge me, human," he hissed. Marcus stared him down. "I dare to stand up for what's right." They clashed in a furious melee. Zagrax's strength pitted against Marcus's speed and cunning. Blows were exchanged, blood was spilled, but Marcus would not yield. For Zix, for his crew, for all the innocent lives the Krodax had destroyed, he fought on. In a final desperate move, Marcus feinted left, then lunged right, catching Zagrax off guard. His rifle butt connected with the Krodax's skull with a sickening crunch. Zagrax crumpled, his eyes rolling back in his head. Marcus stood over him, panting, victorious. "It's over," he said into his comm. "Zagrax is down, the Krodax are finished." Cheers erupted over the link, his crew's relief and triumph palpable. "Get back here, Captain," Liara said, her voice thick with emotion. "Let's go home." Marcus made his way back to the Dauntless, leaving the crippled Krodax ship behind. As they emerged from the nebula, battered but unbroken, Marcus allowed himself a moment to breathe. They had done it. Against all odds, they had won. but what he saw next made his jaw drop. Arrayed before them was a vast fleet of ships, Zorgalian, Lyraxian, Varkian, and a dozen other races, and they were all here for them. "Captain Marcus Riker," a familiar voice crackled over the comm. It was the Elvanian counselor, but gone was the condescension from before. "The galaxy owes you and your crew a great debt. Your actions have shown us the importance of unity and compassion. The Zorgalians have shared their medical breakthroughs with us, and together we will stand against the Krodak's threat." Marcus felt a lump in his throat. He looked around at his crew at Zix and saw the same emotion reflected in their eyes. "We did it together," he said, "as a team, as friends." As Zix was reunited with his people, tears of joy streaming down his face, Marcus knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had played a part in shaping its future. They had shown that courage, determination, and the unbreakable human spirit could overcome any obstacle, and that legacy, Marcus knew, would endure long after they were gone. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.